Much of what we do here at Personal Edge Fitness is changing somebody's lifestyle. I know you've heard that. We talk about it all the time. You hear me say at the end of the podcast, reach your level of wellness. And that's all about adapting and changing and enhancing your lifestyle through what we do here in our personal training programs. Well, I think the best way to showcase that is, of course, talk to a client. Today we have a guest on. Scott Carmichael is going to join us. He's been working out with us for a while. And not only talk about how it has affected his overall health and how he's feeling now, but also how it affects his job. Talking about personal training in your life and in the workplace today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining me today. And my guest, and let me make sure I get this right, Scott Carmichael, District Chief of a fire department here in Mobile, correct?
Correct.
Great, from Mobile County. Yes,
yep.
Exactly. So, Scott, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I want to tell you first, before we get into our conversation about how to get in touch with the show, if you have any questions about this particular podcast or any others, or if you have any questions about, of course, dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, you can reach out to me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. Personaledgefitness.com, of course, is our website also, and Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. Hit me up on X at Team PE if you're so inclined. As I said in the intro, we like to take time every once in a while on the podcast and talk to a client that has actually worked out here and the changes to their life, and that's what Scott's doing with us today. Scott, if you would, tell me a little bit about tell everybody about a little bit how you got involved in Personal Edge, what brought you here. Go from there.
Sure. I have a very physically demanding job, or I should say I had a very physically demanding job.
I can guess in the fire department you would.
Absolutely. Some of it healthy, some of it not. We don't always get to choose what the time, the location, the place, the body position, and all those things, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the bad side of that. But I had a physically demanding job, and then I promoted to, as you said, district chief,
right,
which is more of an administrative position.
Okay.
And after doing that for about a year, I realized that my life was missing the physicality of my previous job.
Correct.
Being on the fire truck.
Right.
And just showing up and going to work every day kept you in a certain amount of shape.
Sure. When you started out your career as far as working in the fire department, how old were you when you started?
I'm a little younger than 30. I've been in it about 20 years.
Okay.
And so when I'm, in that age bracket, I have endless energy and
right,
endless stamina and no problems with my body, no, injuries or whatever under my belt yet. And so my fitness was very easy when I first started.
Sure.
Because my body responded. As my lifestyle changed, as I hit different seasons in my life, whether it was rank or extracurricular activities or, once you hit a certain age, you start having less energy and things like that, along with a culmination of 20 years of
right,
bad habits physically.
Sure.
Waking up in the middle of the night with cold muscles and having to do all the things firefighters and paramedics do and lift people and put on heavy gear and not be able to stretch,
right,
and not have good body mechanics. It takes its toll on the body.
Sure.
And as those injuries accumulated, I found myself being less and less able to maintain that proficiency in my job.
Sure.
And I didn't exactly know it because I was able to keep doing the job and have the job keep me fit enough.
Right. What made you call Personal Edge? How did
Sure.
you hear about us? How did you get involved there?
When I realized that I had moved to a management position that was more sedentary, more
right,
office management, so to speak, and I realized that I was missing that piece of activity from my daily agenda.
Were you exercising before you came to Personal Edge?
I was, in addition to whatever I did in my normal duties. I
right,
would try to work out, try to have a gym membership, try to work out on my own at home, and it never really stuck. I'm not the kind of person that can walk into a regular gym and
right,
come up with a workout on my own. It was made even more difficult by the fact that in 2013 I had a pretty major back injury and back surgery, which limited my ability to do certain things.
Sure.
And then I didn't have the knowledge or the fitness intelligence
Right.
to work out around my back injury and around the problems that it gave me post-surgery. So it never stuck.
Right.
If one thing went wrong, if I just never felt comfortable in the average gym, so I would muddle through some things or work out with a friend.
This is something we talk about quite often. In fact, I say it. People tease me about my elevator speech. I always warn folks when I do a consult. In fact, you did this with me. I always warn them that you're about to hear my elevator speech. I've said this a few thousand times. And I usually tell them how many times I've told it either that day or that week. But in that, I talk about wonderful facilities and what have you. But what I really say, the reason why people come to see us is our expertise. Because that's probably the biggest thing, besides accountability. That's probably the number one thing we sell is the expertise, and you're speaking to that about
Absolutely.
going in.
Meanwhile, my wife has been a member here for several years, pre-COVID, and then during COVID, when you switched to, or really she leaned into the online training.
Right.
I really got to see that. I really got to see the expertise of, hey, my body isn't feeling this. What can we change it to? So take all of that and put it together to the period of my life where I said, you know what, I can't dig myself out of this hole. I need help. Right. And you guys were the natural phone call because I've been seeing it for so many years in my house.
Exactly. So, and many of you know that 30% of our clientele is now online, and your spouse was a good example of that, of folks that actually train with us in person and then found out, wow, I can do this online. This is great. And that's why now 30% of our clientele is online. But listen to what you're hearing as Scott tells his story, talking about the phases of life, the seasons of life, they say. And look at your lifestyle when you started in your 30s, and you're saying everything came easy to me and what have you. Well, yeah, you were active, you were moving, you were what have you. And I think you've noticed that. I think you've noticed that as the activity level changes, your lifestyle started to change, your mindset started to change.
Absolutely.
And so you were seeing differences. As far as you're back now, how was that going?
I wish I had joined 10 years ago. It's given me life back, if that makes sense.
I promise you I didn't pay him to say that, but
it's given me mobility back. I talk about every morning, the trainer I'm with asks where we are with my back. And on a day-to-day basis, we can adapt the workout to what my trainer thinks my needs are, not what I think my needs are. Perfect example was last week I came in ready to just push it. Yeah. And one look from Katie, and she said, no, we need a recovery day. And I walked out of here standing 3 inches, 4 inches taller than when I walked in. I didn't know I needed that. Right. She did. She's the expert. And I benefit from that greatly. So I'm able to get freedom of movement and confidence back. And those are two things that I didn't know I was missing because, you go so long living a certain way, you don't know anything different. You don't remember anything different. And so now I'm remembering what it's like to be able to have the confidence in my back to do things that I would avoid in the past.
Scott, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted Scott to come on the show with me. And there were conversations you and I had prior to this. And actually, if you don't mind me sharing, you sent a few messages to me about the changes you'd gone through and what have you. And what you're hearing lifestyle change. You're hearing, obviously, activity change. In a minute, I think we're going to talk about a little bit about nutrition change. And then all of it started affecting mindset. You bring up, my confidence changed. Right. And those are the four concepts of ability: fitness, activity, nutrition, lifestyle, mindset. And I think it's interesting how you went through those machinations, you went through those changes, and realized, hey, that number on the calendar, I should be proud of it. Because exactly, I look forward to the next one because you can get better and you will get better and what have you. I didn't ask your permission about this, so we may be editing here, but you got into the program, but you also you went through one of our other programs as far as nutrition is concerned.
Yeah, In It to Lose It. As I recall, you told me in our initial consultation, you said you don't normally advise this, but then you advised me on basically the day I started my first session here to also start In It to Lose It. Right. I was initially very hesitant, but then I thought immediately back to that idea that I'm here to put my future in your hands and, the PE family. And I'm so glad I did because it was, again, a very great awakening and it was a great reset for what I needed.
Good.
As it happened, due to just luck, I had to have some blood work done 4 weeks, in the 4 weeks on either side of the In It to Lose It. So basically a week before and a week after In It to Lose It. And once my body got over the shock of eating clean, hydrating correctly, and that's really all In It to Lose It is accountability towards those things. Eating specifically for sure, but the lessons that I got out of it were eating clean and hydrating correctly. And at the end of it, I found in 2 weeks, not only had I lost 14 pounds, which is amazing.
It's tremendous.
And I have my notes to make sure I get it right. My blood work showed that I have high cholesterol naturally, but it dropped by 74 points.
Amazing.
Specifically, my LDL dropped 50%.
Oh, wow.
In 2 weeks.
Incredible.
So, and yes, that is a testament to the clean eating, but it's also an indicator of how poorly I was eating before, for sure. But taking ownership of nutrition as part of physical wellness was kind of the lesson that I got out of that 2 week.
Actually, the biggest part of everything that we do here, as far as changing lifestyles and what have you, reaching your level of wellness, and why I get so upset, it just boggles my mind about the resistance to what I talk about, the lie of age. And I keep going back to that subject. It happens to be one of my favorite subjects. My listeners, I promise you, are very used to me talking about it. But what I don't understand about the resistance to understanding the facts, the studies, the clinical studies that back that up, the fact that there's no clinical proof on the other side that proves that time passing on a calendar causes deterioration, which it doesn't. The greatest thing about it is that if you do understand it, you look at the research and you go, okay, maybe I need to look into this. Maybe I need to think about, I can get better. I can control this. That's what it gives you. And that's what you're talking about. Absolutely. You're talking about the fact that now I have control. I have control of my nutrition. I have control of my resistance training. I have control of my life, for that matter. So, and I would hope that and I feel like I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't mean to. If I'm wrong, please tell me, that the considerations about your back have become less and less as far as worrying about it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. On a given week, I don't have as many bad back days. I hope they can see the air quotes.
Right.
And when I do, I'm not as afraid of them as I used to be. I used to think that it was an all stop. I had to go home and lay down, and I was because frankly I was afraid that I was going to re-injure my back.
Right.
And that would paralyze me.
Yeah.
The psychological damage of my back injury was far worse than the physical damage.
Right.
And so now I don't have as many of those days in a given week or month. And when I do, they're to a lesser degree, less severity, and I'm not as afraid of them. Okay, we don't have to call an all stop on life. We just do a pivot, just like the workouts that I have here.
Right.
It's just a pivot. It's just, instead of doing this, we're going to do that. Maybe you're not going to frame a new deck that day. You're going to find some other way to be productive and have movement and give your body work where you can. Give your body what it needs.
Right.
And that's absolutely the lesson. And same thing with nutrition. You pointed out to me well after the In It to Lose It was over that on the days where I stumble or where I fall off of the health food mindset, my bad food days, you don't fall as far.
Right.
And so it's easy to get back in line.
Right.
So
it's back to getting under control. And of course, now my listeners know that they hear my mantra all the time. There's no such thing as bad food. There isn't. It's controlling amounts. It's controlling amounts, and that's what you've obviously done. I'm going to give you a question here, and I'm going to talk a minute in between to give you a second to think about it, because I didn't prep you on this one. But wanted to talk about of course, you had a little bit of insight because your spouse was involved in the program prior to, but your thoughts about what it would be like and then what it turned out to be. And I'm curious about your thoughts on that. But I'm going to touch on something also, and that is that you work with a variety of trainers here. That's something we do here at Personal Edge Fitness. I've talked about it before. We have the most qualified staff in the Southeast, and we're very proud of that. But arguably, we have the best trainer in the Southeast on our staff. But like I always say, nobody is as good as my team. Two heads are better than one. And I'm curious about what your expectations were before you got here. And then also your reaction to working with a variety of trainers.
I had my doubts. I did not think that you could keep this large number of trainers up to speed on Scott's file. You have a lot of clients here. And I was interested to see how it was going to turn out. I thought there was going to be a lot more. No. My name's Scott.
Right.
I do this. I have a back injury. And I knew the trainers would all know their stuff to take me where I needed. I just wasn't sure that they would know. I thought there'd be a lot of repetition on my part of reminding them what I can and can't do, or what I did last week, or whatever my next goal is fitness-wise.
Right.
Then I turned back around to my decision that I'm here because you're the expert, right? And very quickly, I found out that not only was I wrong, everybody takes the time to learn each client. Right. And I noticed that just from the effort of everyone greeting me by name when I walked in the door within my first week. That was a huge part of the indicator that they're identifying me as a person, individual, and if they're learning my name, they're learning everything else about me as well. Right. I actually really love the idea of training with different trainers. Everybody has a different style. Human nature puts you into routines, ruts, consistency, right? And so I am with enough different people that I'm being challenged in different ways. Right. Obviously, the nature of my schedule, rotating schedule, means I have to move around some of my sessions. Sure. So I have my normal, and then I have my substitute trainers. Right. And everybody has learned me, and I love that everybody has a different default. Right. Some go for mobility. Right. Some go for strength, some go for stretching. Some go for functional fitness. Sometimes we're grabbing the dumbbells. Sometimes we're grabbing, flipping a tire. There's so much variety in that. Right. That to me ensures that I'm not only getting healthier or more fit in one way. Right. It's in all the ways. Yeah. I wouldn't want to always come in and hit the weight machines. Sure. I wouldn't always want to come in and do a high intensity training session. Sure. I wouldn't always want to come in and do stretching. Right. But mixing it up, and I don't know if the staff does that organically or if they're doing it just for me, or I don't know what what the secret is going on there, but it works. It's perfect for me. Right. It gives every part of my body what it needs. Sure. They have enough to balance when I walk in the door and they say, "Hey, what's going on with you today?" Well, hey, my back is great. All right, let's lean into let's do some stuff to solidify that, or hey, we need to stay away from the back. Right. So they're already accommodating on a day-to-day basis. So then to accommodate in the variety of different types of workouts you could do is again, they're the expert. Believe it or not, most people think that makes it harder for us. I think you'll see we hire very talented staff, and we're very picky about who we hire. But if I have somebody come from another facility where they've done personal training, they come here and find out, wow, I'm not going to have just my clients. In other words, I'm going to be working with other people's clients, whatever. It's a tough shift because they feel like, well, just what you said, we're not going to be able to keep up with the information. But also, the reason they end up staying, we have an average tenure, according to IRSA, our largest industry association, the average tenure of a personal training career is 2 years. Average tenure of a staff member here at Personal Edge is 7 years, 6.5 years on client, 7 years on staff. And the reason for that, what they find out is that I get to do what I like to do. And so it works out both ways. You mentioned a minute ago, you noticed that everybody has their own, we operate in the same basic code of ethics, but we all train different. We have our different likes, different dislikes. And so we get to go real deep into the things that we like to do because we have somebody else that's going to pick up the other side. And so it ends up working. I'm glad you found it a good response. We like it as trainers because we get to stay really involved in what we really like to do. And I'm glad you've seen a benefit of that. And I got to ask you now, I saw a celebratory post that you did on social media that you have a son that I think that had a major announcement this past weekend. Yeah, he chose his college future. Going to Boston University. Very proud of him. Congratulations. Yep, thank you. That's great. Thank you. And that speaks to, on the weekends, he would be my hangout buddy. We would go, do some sports. I always got to work out on Sundays because he and I were palling around and running around. Lifestyle, exactly. And now it's a lifestyle change. And what's nice is I'm not afraid of that. Now I know, now they'll just be, I'll find something to replace it. But when he's moved out of the house, I will have something to fill it to get that time. Exactly. I'll just keep doing that for, as you said, as many birthdays as I can. As possibly can. Yeah. Exactly. I'm glad to hear that.
I really appreciate you being on the show. Is there anything else you wanted to add? I don't want to skip over anything. But
I think the big thing that anybody watching this, if they're thinking about joining, they need to understand that my career is universal. It could be it could be the fire service for me. It could be somebody else working in construction, moving up into management, working in a warehouse. My career journey was from a blue collar position that gave me some injuries, but gave me fitness.
Right.
Into a more of a white collar administrative position.
Sure.
And that took time. So between the lifestyle changes through the seasons and my job changing, that story is universal.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
If somebody identifies with that, and they also identify with the piece where they're not comfortable in a regular gym, going in and making it up on their own and figuring it out on their own, then I suspect they are. If that's them, then that's where I was a year and a half ago.
Right.
And this is a great way to get out of that.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that very much. So, and also, thank you not only for being on the show today, but thank you for what you do. All of us sleep better because of what you guys are doing out there, and we really appreciate it. Scott, I really appreciate you being on the show. As Scott was talking about making that decision to come in here, so it's something I was talking about last Friday, and it's the same thing I say in every consult. No matter what, it's a free consult. We want to sit down and talk to you. I promise you, if nothing else, you'll get enough out of that consult to make it more than worth your while. But we'd love to speak to you about making those changes. And if you have any questions about this podcast, or if you have any questions about dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, please contact us, area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Reach out to me via email, Garrett@personaledgefitness.com. That's our website and Facebook page. Hit me up on X at Team PE if you're so inclined. Like Scott was saying, if you have had your fire truck removed out of your life, please give us a call. We'd like to do whatever we can to help you live your level of wellness. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.